Hello and welcome to On the Kerbs Pub Chat. I'm your host, Thiemo Albers-Daly, and in this episode we'll be talking about our motorsport predictions and expectations for 2025. Joining me to do this are none other than my accomplished partners in crime, motorsport journalist Öykü Ceylan and motorsport pundit Jacob Phillips. How are you both?
I'm good. Happy New Year, first of all. We're happy. How are you, Jacob?
I'm doing very well. Happy 2025, guys. And what a year. Not only it promises to be in the pub, but also it should be a fantastic year for motorsport, not only in F1, but across the board, I think.
I think we're not being too ambitious with saying we want to do more of this year when we've got probably quite a bit to talk about. And I don't think we've ever got into a season or a year of motorsport where we've expected to have so much to talk about before anything's actually happened.
True. So shall we announce that our 2025 resolutions include having a pub chat every month?
Yes, I think so. That could be quite fun to do. It's admittedly, hopefully at least one or two of us will be in every single one of those, and if not, then we'll try and drag someone else in, because let's face it, the pub, as we've said before, Jacob, is welcome for all, as long as you've got something interesting to say, which, even if you don't after a couple of pints, it'll probably seem interesting, so it's all good, and it's going to be covered.
Well, I mean, apparently I'm very interesting, although some people say outside of the pub I'm not, so there's your answer.
We'll park that there, because we are inside the pub, so you are definitely interesting at the moment. Expectations for this year, there's plenty that we can probably talk about, and where to start? Jacob, I'm going to come to you first. What's sort of top of your list of kind of expectations for the year? There's a lot of newness, it feels like, but also there's a lot of potential endings coming.
There's a lot to look forward to. I don't think I'll look forward to, obviously, if you've listened to an episode of the Pub Chat before, we do talk a lot about F1, although there are a lot of other motorsports out there as well. And I think for a lot of motorsports, there is a lot of expectation in the air. Obviously, if we start with F1, I'm sure you'll come on to this. I'm not going to steal your thunder, Thiemo, but we have Hamilton, obviously, in a couple of months' time appearing in red, and it's still not looking any more real. Every time I see an edited image on Sky or wherever else of him wearing that red scarlet, racing overalls, it doesn't feel real. And you've got to think in a car that could have won the championship last year, could we see Lewis Hamilton in a title fight next year? We've also got what could be one of the most, and I don't want to big it up too much because F1, as you know, guys, has let us down on more than one occasion before in the past. But we could go into a season whereby we actually don't know for the first time in a very long time who the championship winner at the end of the season is going to be. Obviously, the last few years, it's been pretty obvious it's going to be Verstappen. He's going to be there or thereabouts. If the car doesn't play ball, we have 4, 5, 6, 7 drivers who could potentially top up the list at the come Abu Dhabi. So that for me is going to be, it's refreshing, exciting, and something that's not always synonymous with F1. So I can't wait to see how that plays out this year.
Yeah, I think it's going to be an interesting one because for us in particular, Jacob, last year after the 23 season, we went into the 24 season with this whole Las Vegas mentality of no expectations whatsoever.
I'm still going to keep that.
Yes, I'm going to try and endeavour to keep it. That might be my New Year's resolution, but I think this season that's going to be potentially trickier because we have a bit of expectation too in terms of the potential that's there. But that's going to be something that's going to be interesting to touch back on as we get further into the season and see which way the wind blows. Okay, what about you?
I just know that Hamilton is going to look so good in red, and I cannot wait to see the images, like the actual ones, not just the Photoshop thing the media has been feeding us. Also, I think the title fight is going to be epic, but I'm still pretty in favor of the fact that Max is really, really likely to get his 5th, but we'll see.
Like you say, I think if he does go after it, it's potentially not going to be because of the car, it's going to be because of him and showing what he showed last year in a lot of ways of fighting against the grain, and it's going to be up to other drivers and other teams to make mistakes some of the time to help him on his path there, as well as him being who he is. And if you can have, for example, Ferrari up there more or less doing what they did in 24 and not making that many mistakes, then it's going to be a very tight battle. Maybe it will actually go down to Abu Dhabi for the first time in a few years, which will be very exciting. I think I share both of your excitements there and anticipation for Ferrari at Hamilton because, like you say, you see all the Photoshop images, it still doesn't quite seem real in the same way that when the news broke, what was it, February of last year, you read it and went, all of this is legit, but I don't believe it. I'm just trying to figure out when I'm going to wake up from this very odd fever dream. And then I did, and that was the real bit of it. And right, I'm not sure what to do with that. And I think what makes it so exciting is the fact that I think earlier today, at the time of recording, Ferrari have revealed, or it's been discovered at least, that as part of the testing that they get to do over the course of the season or pre-season, 4 days are going to be dedicated just to Lewis at Fiorano, in Italy, rather. And that's what, 1,000 kilometers you're going to get to do in that time as part of it. And it's all for him, just to get him embedded with the team, which I absolutely love that they've just gone, right, we're not really using this as a betting in year. We're going to go straight for it because we've got new regulations in 26. We don't know what those are going to throw. We'll obviously try our hardest then, but we knew, as you mentioned earlier, Jacob, that we were good in 24, and we were quite close considering we weren't expecting to be. So let's see what we can do. And I like that Charles is potentially on board with that. He's not threatened. He's still not in this point where you've seen where with McLaren they're trying to figure out what to do because they weren't certain of their positioning at the start of the season, and they kept making all these faux pas all over the place. Whereas Leclerc, or it comes across as, we're gonna just see where we are first, and then we can bicker later when we've got something to bicker out. Let's get to that position where we can be in that privileged position that Rosberg and Hamilton were, for example, where it's like, oh, we're the only two people really here now. Okay, sweet, we can have a nice fun battle for it. And if we could get Jacob some Rosberg Hamilton Bahrain-ness from Leclerc and Hamilton and Ferrari, wouldn't that be quite something?
You're can it be March already? I mean, if that happens, I mean, we're in for an absolutely epic ride. I think we've had glimpses of that, obviously, with Hamilton and Verstappen going head to head in 2021. But I think in the last couple of years, although last year was a great season, I think it still missed a little bit of that on the all the time. Obviously, Verstappen was always seeming to be fighting someone else. 1 week it was Norris, 1 week it was Leclerc, 1 week it was Hamilton, and whoever else. But I think if we get that at Ferrari, we haven't seen them really properly fight. Although last year they were close, we haven't seen them properly fight. And I think with that added bit of hunger from the garage itself, thinking we can go and win this title. We've got a 7-time championship winner on board. Charles Leclerc won't be far away. I think we're in for an absolutely epic season. And why not kick that off in Australia? First practice, let's go set some times.
Just feels right,
competitive, and it might actually be the first year I actually stay up and watch the whole of Australia, because Thiemo knows every year when it comes to Australia, I seem to have been quite lazy over the last few years, and I actually missed the race last year and actually watched it on record.
Your intention is always there. I will say that in your favour. You set alarms, you have the plan. I wake up, I get ready to watch stuff. I'll just message Jacob, see where he is, and then about 7 hours later, oh, bugger.
Last seen online at midnight, and I think also F1 have done me a massive favour, and they've reinvigorated my love with Australia quite a bit, because it's back to being the first race. And if we don't talk about anything else, I mean, that's a great way to start the season, isn't it? It just feels, as I said to Thiemo, and I don't know how many times I said this to you, Thiemo, but Ferrari, Hamilton, F1 starting in Australia, it feels like proper F1.
I'm going to say, okay, have you ever had the start of an F1 season in Australia since you started watching it?
No, it has always been in the Arab
Bahrain.
continent. Yeah.
I'm trying to remember the name of insert country here. You were in for a treat. Again, you won't have to get up quite as early as us, but it's still, there's something, and Jake and I haven't been able to quite figure out what it is, but there's something weirdly satisfying about having to get up on our end about 6 a.m. on a Saturday and a Sunday morning to watch the first race of a brand new season. And then you combine it with the fact that Ferrari and Hamilton and all these new drivers coming into it, there's just something extra special about it.
It's going to feel like Christmas Day come early, or Christmas Day come late. It's more like 4 a.m, I think. I think 6 a.m. might be actually quite generous.
Weirdly, even better. I somehow don't mind it.
Well, there is some pubs are open quite late, so if a pub's staying open till 3 a.m, it means I can stumble home.
No excuse for you this time.
In time to start the race. I mean, this pub likes staying open late.
Yeah.
There you go. Might not have to stagger home at all. You can just be comfortable and just get ready for it there.
And also to think that their main newer base is in Europe, to have the opening race at a time where half of Europe is sleeping, it doesn't sit right with me, but it seems to be working.
You've got to experience it, and then we'll talk about it later. I think you'll enjoy it.
Okay.
Away from F1, is there anything else in the wider spectrum of motorsport for either of you that you're looking forward to that you want to just touch on briefly? Or anything else in F1?
I am really, and as F1 sort of bored me in the last couple of years, obviously last year was good, but me and Thiemo had to find ways to sort of reignite our passion for motorsport and find other things. Obviously, one of the big things that we've talked about before has been IndyCar, but I've also sort of a bit more quietly watched the World Endurance Championship, and I can't wait to see Aston Martin make I think it's their debut. They might have been in it before, but certainly their latest iteration, if you like. They're bringing the Valkyrie to the hypercar class, and I can't wait to see what they can do off the bat. Maybe, who knows, fighting the Ferraris and Toyotas, maybe a couple of wins, that would be quite interesting.
It is a very competitive and sexy championship, and I don't think it gets snoozed on, but it doesn't get anywhere near much attention than it deserves, I don't think. And I think for me, the one thing I will want from Aston Martin is if and when they win a race with that Valkyrie, the victory music has to be Ride of the Valkyries. Otherwise, what's the point in even going?
Yeah, there's no point. Absolutely no point whatsoever.
Do you want the F1 one first or the alternative one?
Whichever you would like.
Okay, so first of all, we listen, we don't judge, but I'm quite excited.
It's a good way to start this, isn't it, Jacob?
Wait for it.
You never
I'm
judge.
quite excited for the special launch event for the new season liveries of F1. I'm sorry, but it just excites me. I don't know.
Well, you know what? This is good. This is good because we get to ask the question, what about it excites you? I'm intrigued.
The pub is a safe space, guys. Keep it that way.
It is. That's why I've decided not to go down the avenue I was thinking of going down.
Because we haven't seen anything like it before, and having such a big and bold event for the 75th, I think, year of F1 it's just my cup of tea. I love the glamour, and I cannot wait to see what Lewis Hamilton's going to wear, you know.
True. I think, and this is my diplomatic side coming out, Jacob, you'll notice this, I think that it will be something that everyone will get something out of. You'll either enjoy it for just the spectacleness of it. I think with Jacob and I are fans from older F1, whereas you're a newer fan. You came along with Drive Stuff, so it's probably maybe more appealing to you because you've come up with that kind of way of it being presented. But I do think that I'm hoping that it's going to be better than I think it's going to be. I'm going to go, this is where my Las Vegas mentality is coming into it, because then that way I don't lose nothing. And I think a bit like Drive to Survive, I won't mind it. We'll get a lot of memes out of it, and there'll be something to talk about afterwards, which is perfect for this. So from that perspective, yeah, I can not judge you for it.
I think it's bold that they're doing it, and I think, well, I hope it's a one-off, but, I want to like it. It could be fantastic. I could be, proven wrong. I think, you're going to have to put all the stops out for the 75th anniversary. It's something bold. It's something brave. I don't know how much we're going to learn. I think, again, it's just going to be a livery reveal. The teams don't reveal their true cars until we get to pre-season testing in Bahrain. But, it's not going to define the season at all, and you don't have to watch it. I might not. I may do. I may be very curious and sort of turn it on. But, yeah, it could be good. It depends how F1 we go, and by what I mean by that is sort of how Americanized we go. And, if you're going to put on a show, why not do it the American way? I mean, I don't actually mind what we do over in Las Vegas anymore because, you're embracing it. But,
that's the thing. I think if you're going to do it, do it
properly. How it's going to
go. Don't go in half-cocked with it. And I think as long as it, like you said, we want to like it, Jacob. We've just been scorned a bit too much over the years, I think, by Liberty and the like. So we've got kind of an older lens which we view all of this through. But I think, like you say, we were going into Las Vegas with no expectations when it came up, and we ended up really liking it. And we've had 2 years of really enjoying the whole kind of aspect of it. Obviously, there's bits that were like, oh, come on. But you could have that with most races if you really dial into it. I mean, go for the national anthem for pretty much any Grand Prix. And you question, really, was everyone else booked on this occasion that this is who we were left with? And you think, okay, then that's an element we're not going to enjoy about the weekend. But it doesn't stop you from enjoying it overall. So, yeah, okay, I'll won't be too mean on you for that one. But if you, I'll save my non F1 thing just briefly before switching back to you, Jacob, which Extreme H is meant to debut at some point this year. We don't really have any firm details on it. This is the spiritual/natural successor to Extreme E, which cut itself short midway through last year, and we've seen some teams drop out ahead of them, with an eye maybe to coming back in for this hydrogen version, and we've also seen a couple of teams now, I think, just leave completely. So it's kind of up in the air, but definitely happening. It's a very interesting idea. It's obviously racing with hydrogen-powered cars off-road in extreme conditions does sound quite appealing to just motorsport in general, and it'd be very fun to see where that goes, especially as if it has the kind of success and entertainment from a racing perspective that Extreme E did. Because I know that wasn't your cup of tea, Jacob, but I quite liked that they just tried something and went for it, and it proved quite entertaining for me from something that you're always going to struggle when you start with it, and they were fiddling around with it a lot because they knew that they weren't having a perfect formula up to that point. So to see what that next chapter looks like is going to be intriguing, and again to see who comes into play in these new cars, because we've had people from all over the shop come in and race in them up to now, and they've done a lot of testing in Sardinia, I believe, up to now to get the mileage in to see what they can do with it. So for me, that's going to be something where when it comes, whenever that is, I should be watching it, and hopefully they can pull it off, because that could be quite interesting in terms of the wider implications for motorsport if they can make hydrogen work.
And that is what I was just about to touch on. I think that, I made it no secret I wasn't necessarily a fan of Extreme. I didn't really like the concept. I'm more a fan of race itself than time trial elements, but it had its perks, I guess. But one thing that really intrigues me about this, as you were saying, Thiemo, is hydrogen and its wider implication. We've I think Toyota have developed behind the scenes some hydrogen fuel cell cars. There has been the mooted possibility in 10 to 20 years' time, maybe longer than that, who knows, that we might have to look for a new fuel alternative in F1, for example. Could that be hydrogen? It's pretty untested at the moment. I'm not going to pretend to be an expert, but I think it's the intrigue that's there. So for me, it's more the background stuff, the technological advances that we've seen in motorsport, and certainly what we're going to see here in this new series that might benefit us, 40, 50 years down the line. So for me, that's what I'm going to be keeping my eye on when it comes out. And is there, to be honest, team, I've not seen too much about it. Is there a penciled-in start date yet? Are we still trying to get it off the ground? And is there like a TV deal or?
Usually there's a TV deal, depending on the region, so it varies quite a bit. I think ITV've had it for the last couple of years pretty consistently. But for the countries where they don't have it, it's always free on YouTube. Even for the countries where you got it on ITV, for example, it's still available free to watch on YouTube, because I think they realise that in terms of their lifespan, they're still very infantile, and they need to grow that fan base if they want to keep it going. We don't have an actual start date yet, but these things do happen quite quickly once they get going. So I wouldn't be surprised if we turn around in a couple of weeks and go, oh, it's starting in February, apparently. Okay, cool. They keep posting stuff regularly in terms of testing and little snapshots here and there. So your guess is as good as mine. We don't know, but I predict before May. There's my first prediction for 2025. It's a pretty boring prediction, but there we go. Öykü, any thoughts on that yourself?
I think it's very inspiring to see that motorsports are being this early adopters into the new technologies in automotive industries. And I think Extreme H is quite a good example to showcase that as well, because hydrogen power cars, they're not really out there yet, but Extreme H is now. So we were able to test if it's really going to work and if there's a potential future for it. I think it's going to be like a trial series. I'm not too hyped about it just yet, but it can be good.
It's going to approach it, I think, in the way I approached Formula E when it first started. You go, interesting that you're having to swap cars midway through a race because you don't have enough juice in the system to actually make it. But then you saw a couple of years later, they then had developed technology to such a degree that they were able to make it a full race distance and keep going from there. And I did like that element of it, not just for the wider implication, but because then you probably get better racing out of it. So yeah, I can see why, and maybe if we're talking about it next year, that'll be the year where it's kind of this is year zero, then we get to year one of Extreme H properly, and off we go, and we might even get Jacob in on it. You might actually like it.
Well,
Yeah.
to get me on it, you think you need to. One thing that has annoyed me about Formula and any sort of new startup series is the fact that I've always found it very hard to know where to watch it in the UK. It's moved around how many times, Thiemo? 6, 7, 8 different channels. And I think if we want to get a new startup series and really get it off the ground, I think that, like, Sky have found with F1 and they had ITV and BBC in the past, a home where that channel's on, it's a Sunday. I mean, I don't know what day they're going to race. I'm guessing it'll be over the weekend in Formula H, but it's a Sunday. I'm going on that channel. We know it's going to be on there. Bang, there we go. Let's watch it. I think it needs to find a permanent home just to get some momentum behind it, because Formula E for me, are slightly off topic here, but slightly linked. It's lost a bit of momentum. So if we're going to get a new series off the ground, I think it needs to be on a regular channel where it can build up momentum, and then season by season we know where to find it.
I agree. I agree with you there. Öykü, your non-F1 expectation hope for the year?
Okay, so I think with this one, you're going to share my enthusiasm.
I was wondering which way that was going there.
F1 Academy's grid is expanding, and now they will have 18 cars instead of 15, which I think is really important to showcase the fact that they've been doing at least some things right, because the sports is still growing. And I'm quite excited to see the new team, the new drivers, the new season as a whole.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with you, and piggyback slightly there in terms of part of the newness of it with three extra teams. That's a bit much. Three extra drivers with one team means that we've got more potential to see new people that we haven't seen before, which
Yep.
we got a bit of that the last few years, but I think if you'd been following that sort of racing with W Series, with F1 Academy, and just motorsport a little generally, you'd be familiar with some of the names that we got through it. Whereas this year coming, there's already been names announced that I've been so happy where I've gone, I have no idea who you are. And that's excellent, because it means we're getting some of that new blood. And when people like Susie Wolf say we're still a way off getting a woman in Formula One properly, it's going to be someone from a certain age range that's younger than all of the people currently racing in F1 Academy, sadly. You get a new name and think, oh, maybe this could be you because you are, ridiculously young. And that means that you might stand a chance here to get through. And I mean, the fact that I've written a couple of names on a note here, like Albert Hurup, had no idea who she was, still not completely convinced. Nina Gademan had no idea who she was until she came into F1 Academy last year. She did 2 races. Brilliant job she did. I was like, get her in a seat for next year. I bullied them into it. It worked. That was perfect. And then Rafael Ferreira, no idea again. I know that she's brilliant. I know that she does drive quite a bit around Sao Paulo, which isn't too surprising considering that's where the track is. But apart from that, I love that I don't know anything. And like you say, with the extra team there, it shows that they've been doing some things right. They've not done everything right, but they're learning and they're pushing in the next direction. I know how you feel about this, Jacob, but okay, I'm going to say to you as well. What is your opinion when it comes to the cars? Because I feel like that's the main piece missing now in terms of what needs to fix or improve to really bring the series together in terms of getting more eyeballs on it.
The cars need to have more power. I think they need to. I think we need to really showcase the talent we have available, because we've got 18 young drivers who have got a lot to show off. There's some really talented girls on the grid, and I think that I've tuned in to the majority of the races last year, and I'll be very honest here, I didn't enjoy them. I think the raceability of the cars isn't great. The speed isn't captured on TV quite like how F2, F3, and F1 are. It just doesn't feel like you're watching motorsport sometimes. Sometimes you just need that extra bit of power, if you see what I mean, carried across on the screen. And as much as I'm not a fan of artificial racing aids, the series needs something like a push to pass. It needs something like a fan boost or a DRS, because we haven't, and I know it got better towards the end of the season, but at the beginning of the season, there wasn't really the cars found it very hard to race each other. It wasn't really the overtakes, and for me, I found it very boring, and that's really not fair on these girls that have a lot of talent. And I think I read somewhere that the power of the cars is only equivalent to a Ford Formula 4 or something of that equivalent. I'm not too sure exactly, but it's certainly not the power of an F3 car, and it's certainly not the power of an F2 car. And at very least, why not give them the same tools that there is available? There must be the money. There has to be the money. It's F1. There's sponsors, looking in from many eyes across all continents. You look at the names on the car, I can't remember off the top of my head, Puma have been on the car at some point. All these brands have been involved, and drivers have backed it as well. Why not put the money there to really put on a show so we get more eyeballs on the sport, therefore more money comes in, and therefore more chance for the funding so these drivers can get up to F3 and F2, because sadly we know that to get to these upper ladders of the motorsport world, you need that funding there. So I think it's paramount that we get better cars for the product.
I think in this day and age as well, if you're not going to give the cars that, then as we were talking about the other day, Jacob, cameras, just get slightly different cameras on there that portray the action in different ways so that you'll catch people's eye on social media and go, oh, that's a really unique angle that they're filming this race from, or that they've got on the car, so that it just looks a bit different. It's not something you've necessarily seen before or not too much of. So you look at the F1 trailer and you've got that kind of Top Gun Maverick style of seeing the cars go around, or that Carlos Sainz thing I showed you with Williams that they did when they were talking about him the other day. And you go, oh, that's a really neat vantage point. Do that sort of thing, because if you're going to lean into the showbiz entertainment side of things, as F1 keeps doing, then why not do it for the benefit of everyone? And then, like you say, once that money pours in, then you can actually make the car a bit better, and you won't need to rely on the camera work to make it look good. It will have the best of both.
I know you won't be a fan of this, Thiemo, but the gyro cam, or however you say it, will solve everything. I didn't know what it was in the first spin. I thought that, it was a Greek delicacy. I mean, gyros, or however you pronounce it, but I'm not sure exactly how to pronounce it. There's always a debate on that, but yes, that camera will solve everything.
Well said. We can just... yeah.
Okay, Jacob, one last thing from you then. Is there something else from F1 or wider motorsport that you're looking forward to for this year?
Not that I'm looking forward to it, although I could actually be looking forward to it in a roundabout way, and I'll explain why in a second. Obviously, people may have seen that it's been quite a tricky year, or certainly last year was, for Liberty Media, and Liberty Media is still trying to complete the full acquisition of MotoGP. Now, the European Commission have said that potentially this might not be able to go ahead because of monopoly rules. In fact, I think for a brief couple of months back in the early 2000s, F1 was owned by CVC Partners, to do with Bernie Ecclestone, and MotoGP was also owned by the same company, the same umbrella brand. Obviously, the European Commission said, hey, you can't have a monopoly here, and told CVC to sell one of them. Obviously, they chose to sell MotoGP. But yeah, that'd be very interesting going forward, and it could land Liberty Media in a bit of trouble. Now, depending on what side of the fence you sit on, people who have listened to me before know I can't really stand Liberty Media, and I've started to get into MotoGP, and I really don't want them to start ruining that series, because quite a lot of what they've done with F1 has been, let's say, left a sour taste in the mouth. But yes, interesting to see how politics will play we've got, talking politics and staying on the boring subjects for a second, the FIA presidential election, I think, is coming up later this year as well. So it'll be interesting to see if a certain someone will stick around into the future. So who knows? A very interesting year, potentially, sort of not on track but off it. And then linked to that, we'll see who Cadillac decide, if they announce it this year, of course, which they probably should, who their drivers are going to be for 2026.
Nice.
That, Mr. Phillips, is as good a segue as there is possible to be, especially when it's nice and organic like that, and we actually didn't plan it. So, with that in mind, 2025 predictions, shall we place some bets? Do you want to make one of those bets? Who do you think is going to be in Andretti for 26, Jacob, or are you going to go for something else?
There's plenty of things I could predict. I only allowed one prediction.
3.
I don't want to get too greedy, you see. Because
I'll 3 predictions, but you can make them more outlandish if you want.
We have made some outlandish predictions before in the past. I'm not sure when Yuki Tsunoda is going to be opening his restaurant on the Las Vegas Strip, but maybe sometime soon.
I think he's 2027, so I think you're still good for a little bit on that one.
Yeah, he's got one more year at AlphaTauri, and then I can see that. He'll need a year to set up, so I can see that happening. Who is going to be in those Cadillac seats, and we'll call it Andretti? Come on, it's still Andretti. Let's be honest. You can't look past. I mean, it's really boring, isn't it? Colton Herta. I mean, you can't really look past him. I think that if you're going to get an American project off the ground, and although we have one with Haas, maybe more of a true American identity, then you're going to have an American driver on board who's been over, obviously, in IndyCar and been one of the success stories over there. I think he's pretty much near enough. I think he needs to do a few practice sessions and he can have a super license. So you won't be able to, or there won't be much logistics, let's say, to stop him getting that seat. And they're going to want experience. And Thiemo, I know you're especially going to hate me for this, or you're not going to be best pleased. Which one do I? Well, let's go with a certain.
I have an idea in my head.
Sergio Perez will end up in that seat because, like it or not, he's going to come with a lot of sponsors, and he's always done well in midfield cars. I don't think Cadillac are going to be near the top at the start, although stranger things have happened. Look at Braun. So yeah, Sergio Perez will end up in that seat next to Colton Herta, and yeah, sorry, Thiemo. Not that I want it to happen, but it's happening.
I was thinking you might have gone for Bottas or Grosjean, so you got me slightly with Perez there. Like,
well, we wouldn't mind Grosjean, but Bottas. Yeah, I wouldn't really want Bottas, but Grosjean would have been fine.
Yeah, they might want their car and win more than one piece, though.
Yeah.
That is true, budget cap and all that.
True. I would say Bottas as well, because he also come up with a lot of sponsorship deals and stuff. And I think he's not done with motorsport still, so he might have a chance.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see on that one. I mean, there's so many names that we've all flouted together with each other at some point that I don't know who we haven't named at this point. It's not too unrealistic, but yeah, I'm not sure. We'll find out in the summer break, hopefully, because again, you think if it's anyone on the current grid, then they're going to people are going to want to know where they're going, so they know that seats are available elsewhere. But if it's two brand new people outside of F1 already, like the two you suggested, then who knows where we find that out. Öykü, prediction from you for 2025?
Oh, okay. So I think a rookie will get replaced mid-season, at least one.
Do you want to put any money on which one?
But I have two scenarios in mind regarding who that might be. The first one is Jack Doohan getting replaced by Colapinto, probably, maybe, I don't know.
Ooh.
Or Liam Lawson getting replaced by Yuki Tsunoda, which I think is far less likely, but still, you never know.
I'm glad I didn't preempt this by saying I can name which two you're going to predict, because it was the two that I didn't think was going to be the two that you were going for. I'm glad you're not in charge of Red Bull's junior program. Right? You might be even harsher than Marko at this rate.
Yeah.
I've gone for more optimistic. I think the most optimistic one of the three so far, and that Carlos Sainz will get a podium in F1 for Williams at some point this year. I don't care where or how, he just gets it, because everyone will love it. Kind of, if we have to take a Brazil 24 situation where God knows how we got there, then that's fine by me. But I just think after the trouble that they've been having in recent years, it would be nice for him to get more than just a few points for them over the course of the year and to really help in that respect. So that's going to be my hopeful prediction. So with that in mind, do you have either of you any optimistic predictions? I mean, I'm looking at you, Jay, because I'm looking at Sergio Perez going, that's not optimistic. That's not a nice prediction. That's just personal preference.
Can I just say very quickly, team, on your prediction there? I know we're not really playing for points and we're not uber competitive about these things. It has to be a podium in the race. We're not going to count any sprints. Sprints do not exist.
Okay.
That's just a warm-up. We're not counting any sprints.
I thought you were going to be extra harsh, but I would have allowed it and said it can't be something he inherits after the race, thanks to the FIA.
Oh, no, that doesn't count either. No, after the podium's done, the race is over for me.
Okay, final thing then. What if he gets on the podium but then gets demoted? Does that still count?
I'll be very super annoyed, but like we do with our race rankings team, I'll put an asterisk.
I'll be very annoyed as well.
At time of viewing. So George Russell's still one Spa for me, basically. An optimistic prediction. Although I'd really like to see Hamilton do it, I really do think it's sort of Charles Leclerc's time as well. And that sort of leads back to the point we made earlier, where it could be a really ding-dong battle. I actually, My heart says Lewis Hamilton might be the favourite out of those two. Obviously, other teams and drivers do exist, and we don't know how it's going to play out. But as far as I'm concerned, I think my heart says Lewis Hamilton, but my head says Charles Leclerc. And not because Hamilton doesn't necessarily know the team, but he proved me wrong in a lot of aspects last year. I was always very sure that he was a good driver, but I wasn't sure he's a great driver. And last season we saw, for example, his Monza win, among many others. I think that
For a
he now
moment there, I thought you
knows
meant
the team
Hamilton.
quite well. I think he's quite, maybe, I say more at ease of the team. I think he was still swearing down the team radio at some strategy decisions at the end of the season, so who knows. But Charles Leclerc to win the title, it could be completely wrong, but, you know, we've made bad predictions on this podcast before. I'm not going to bring up a bad prediction you made the first time I ever spoke to you, Thiemo. We're not ever going to mention that again.
I'm not even bullshitting. I can't remember what that was, and I don't know if that's because I've just wiped
you want
it from
me-
memory.
Would you like me to tell all the viewers at home?
Oh, go on, because I'm curious as well now, and
So
how much regret and how much of my younger self I have to blame.
It was in 2021. It was the Bahrain Grand Prix, and you confidently. I don't know how confident you were, but I wasn't sure of your levels of confidence back then.
2021, yeah.
Yeah, you said Sergio Perez would win the 2021 championship.
In my defence, he was a lot better back then.
Truly.
And that
was a
was
lot
the only
better
year
back
he
then.
would have been able to do it.
And was whatever you were drinking that night over a certain percentage? Because you must have been down the pub. I mean, pub chat didn't even exist back then, but it certainly sounded like it
I
should
was
have
getting
done.
inspiration.
That's what started this whole thing off. Thank you, Sergio.
Oh dear. Oh,
I
I'm glad
have
that's stuck
one-
in your mind.
That's similar to Jacob's, but although I support Ferrari, I wasn't as optimistic as you, Jacob. But I said Ferrari will win the constructors.
Okay, nice.
Yeah.
So who do you think for the drivers?
Verstappen.
Verstappen.
Yeah.
This is
I don't hate that.
This is
I
turned into
don't
an
hate it.
unofficial kind of we're predicting the F1 side thing. This isn't one of mine, but I'm gonna go for this anyway now. Because I like your idea, Jacob, of Leclerc champion because it would be his time, but not for the reason that you think either. Because I think it'd be great for Lewis to have that betting in year, be a real team player, solidify himself within the team by helping their golden boy. But then he wins 26 because then he's won across multiple eras of the sport and is an undisputed GOAT. That being said,
True.
Oscar Piastri for the championship this year, just to be a bit spicy.
No way.
It will be difficult because he'd have to rely on his team backing him and not Norris and doing it his way. But he's also got Mark Webber to help him out with that. And if anyone could help him do it, it's him. But on the case of champions, I think we'll get a new IndyCar champion as well this year. Because somehow, fun fact, since 2017, we've only had 4 drivers being champions: Dixon, Newgarden, Palou, and Power. And I think it's time we not only got a new champion, but like a new champion, someone who hasn't won before. And with IndyCar, it's kind of surprising that that's a stat, but shows how great those 4 drivers are in particular. So I think it'd be nice, go back to what you were saying earlier, Jacob, about Gordon Herter. He wins the title in IndyCar and then off to Formula 1 for you.
And that'll put IndyCar in a very good light. I mean, we don't really have, certainly a lot of F1 fans, probably myself included, don't have IndyCar on the same pedestal in the terms of prestige. I think the racing over the last few years has been better in IndyCar, and it's a really slept-on series on some people's minds. But it's not on the same level as, like I say, world prestige and stuff. Maybe back in the day it was when Pablo Montoya came over from, I think it was it called Kart back then? I think it was called Kart before it became IndyCar. They sort of merged. There was a bit of a merger in the mid-2000s, but I think that would really put IndyCar back on the map, and it would be a great story. And obviously he would have the confidence to do well in F1 because, he'd be the champion there. So, yeah, I would like to see that happen. What about Marcus Ericsson?
I'll make a ballsy
Marcus
prediction
Ericsson for the
on
championship?
your part. I was going to say, maybe. I mean, he had a dismal season last year, so it'd be good for him to bounce back at least and be competitive. I was just going to make a very outlandish prediction on your behalf, Jacob, and then credit us both if we're right, and you if it's wrong, and go that maybe Palou does a reverse Nigel Mansell. Not Palou, sorry. Herter does a reverse Nigel Mansell, wins IndyCar one year, wins Formula 1 the next.
Oh.
What bottle of drink is currently in your hand?
Canadian Premium Moosehead Lager. Excellent stuff.
Nice. Other drinks are available, but that is very, very good drink. I feel like I need a drink now to match that. I think I need to go very, very wacky now. I mean, that's more outlandish than the Perez one, but if it happens, I mean,
I'm hoping I remember this
I don't know
in a few
what I'd
years'
do.
time
I
when you
honestly
lord it over me.
I have no idea what I'd do. It would be great. You've made me speechless, Thiemo. The thought of that is just so fantastic, and it would really, really rub it in Liberty Media's face. So yeah, I'm up for that.
I can see Öykü's brain whirring there going, I'm using that for the social media.
Yeah.
Take that,
So
Stefano.
while you think of an outlandish one to outdo both of us, because I'm crediting both of us with this one, Jacob, Öykü, do you have any final predictions you want to make for this year? Doesn't
Okay,
have to
so
be
I
F1,
have
it can be generally.
one and a pessimistic one. Which one do you want to end the podcast with?
I'm saying pessimistic first.
Yeah, bad news first.
So I think 2025 will be the start of a downfall for Formula E. As much as I passionately love the series, it has consistently lost money since its debut, and it's been 11 years now. And they lost so many big names, partners like Hugo Boss is gone, Tag Heuer is gone, Moen Chandon is gone, and they're just losing money. And I don't know how long they're going to keep doing it.
That's a fair point. I mean, it's like you say, I think suffering partly from something you mentioned earlier, Jacob, and that we've definitely talked about before in terms of they, in the UK at least, keep moving around in terms of where it's available to watch, so it makes it difficult for casual fans to keep track of it. And then, like you say, it went behind a paywall as part of that, which I think did it far too early to justify it. And I think that, despite what they claimed at times, didn't seem totally as if it was the best move or as good as they made it out to be. And even at the finale last season, being on the ground there, maybe I just kept popping up at the wrong times of day to watch the racing. The final race of the day, because it's one thing if it's practice or qualifying, but the race itself, it wasn't packed the entire time. There were empty seats, and you've seen that at plenty of events throughout the calendar, which is a shame as well, because that's where you definitely need the money to come from. And they had that in Brazil at the start of this season. I'm pretty sure there were certain camera angles where you saw them once and didn't see them again because someone probably noticed, "Ooh, that doesn't make us look so good if you focus on that part of the non-existent crowd." So yeah, pessimistic but realistic, maybe.
Yeah, there's a few problems that Formula E needs to sort out. One of it being the fact that we don't know what channel it's been on. I think it's hopped 6 or 7 channels. I think the branding hasn't ever engaged me. The social media presence could have been for me a lot more. I'm not sure if they really jumped on the bandwagon when social media really took off. I know that Formula One didn't, but Liberty that's one thing that Liberty did well, but that's another story. I feel like Thiemo, you're right. I think it is on sometimes the wrong time of day. I don't know if I'm correct in saying this, but the British Grand Prix or the British E-Prix finale this year was actually quite a good race. I actually watched it, and one that I did enjoy last year. But I think it was very similar time, if not an hour after the Belgian Grand Prix, maybe. I might have got that wrong, Thiemo.
Yeah, because we were split screening at times, because I remember coming into it late and seeing what everyone was going on about McLaren, and I was like, what have they done? I'm so confused. Then I've got to go watch this race. It's messy, and I think that's the thing, which I've definitely talked to both of you about at some point, is that you've got, and this isn't just for Formula E and Formula One, but it's for all motorsport. You've got 52 weeks in a year. Why do you put 7 things on the same weekend and then expect us all to be able to watch them all at the same time? I'm not Hermione Granger. I don't have a time turner. I can't do it. And yeah, you could say catch-up TV, but then, yeah, what if, it's unlikely I'm going to watch all of the 6 hours of Spa for WEC. Well, what if I want to? And I have to then, do I keep pausing it to go over here, to watch this, to watch that? What do I do with that? I want to be able to really immerse myself in whatever I'm watching and not feel like I've got to split screen it all the time. And I think that's part of the problem.
And I don't think Formula E is quite capitalised on its time of the year either, because I think Formula E it started, Thiemo, hasn't it? Or the first race is very soon.
Has. Mm-hmm.
It's happened already. Okay.
Yeah.
And obviously this is a season now. It's F1. It's the off season. There's no testing for another 6, 7, 8 weeks. There's no news. It's really time that I think that maybe they could put more of their races on and really home in on the fact that MotoGP isn't on, WEC isn't on. It's the only really winter motorsport series that we have. And I feel like not enough, certainly I don't do, I know Thiemo you do, and Öykü you do as well, but I don't tune in, and I think a lot of these F1 fans, if it had a better product and maybe A, knew where to find it, and B, the paywall, which was maybe slightly arrogant from Formula E. I don't think they were big enough. I know Thiemo, you said that, but Formula One went behind the paywall in 2012, and even then there was questions about would it be able to sustain. And for years it stagnated before Liberty came in, and obviously football went behind the paywall in the mid 90s. But football was always the sport that was always seen as the leader, and arguably still is. But yeah, I think it could capitalise on a lot of these things, and I do agree that. And I said this to Thiemo before off air a couple of times. I think that Formula E really needs to work out what it wants to do, where it's going, and who its audience is, because I don't really hear people talking about it outside of people that actually really care about it. Because I care about it slightly, but not enough to ever really go away and watch it now. So I think it really needs to expand its wings and sort of work out really where it's going and what it wants.
Yeah,
well, that's the thing. I always measure that with conversations I have with people who I know don't watch motorsport, but they'll know I'm involved in motorsport, but they'll say, "Oh, what have you done, this and that?" And I can mention F1, and they will never have watched F1, but they'll know Hamilton, they'll know F1, they'll know a couple of the names, and that's about it. I mention Formula E, they'll go, "What's that?" And it's, again, 11 years later, and it kind of shows that they missed breaking into this crucial barrier of just being socially conscious of it existing. You don't have to follow it, just to be aware of it. So yeah,
the most I've ever had
hurdles to jump over.
I think the most I've ever had from someone who doesn't know what it is "Oh, is that electric Formula One?" I mean, it kind of is, but it's never more than that. No one will know the brands. No one
It hasn't
will know
established its own identity in that sense. It's just a knockoff version, it comes across as.
Yeah, and it's not like, oh, it's the premier electric motorsport racing series, which that's exactly what it is. It's, Formula One's younger
What I'm hearing there, Jacob, is that you want them to hire the three of us to fix their branding image, and they should pay us a lot of money to do it.
available.
Yeah, it sounds good to me. I mean, sponsored by Pub Chat. I mean, we could host the races around a brewery, maybe.
I think we should have alternative commentary. We'll just keep drinking throughout the entire race, and we'll just get more outlandish with the commentary as we go along, and that'd be an excellent way to get new people involved.
But after watching some of the highlights last year, I think I needed to turn to drink. So yes, it sounds very fitting.
Okay, you had a positive prediction you wanted to end your predictions on.
Well, let me tell you, and you guys decide whether it's positive or not. Not my own opinion, but I've seen this online. Many people were talking about it. People think that Sergio Perez might go to IndyCar for the next season or the one after that. And they think that it would suit him really well.
There are 2 seats left at time of recording, which would be an interesting team for it to go in, but would be, it's Dale Coyne, and they're kind of the nearer the back of the pack, but that wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing for them, because you could help bring them forward a little bit. I'm not against it, because I think we've seen a lot with former F2 drivers and former F1 drivers going over there and having a lot better a time of it. And I think it is just so different, yet so similar that it's positive. I'm up for that. Why not? Yeah. I think at least then, if he's bad at it, we know he maybe lost it and should just go home and be with the kids. But if he's good at it, I'm like, well, it'd be nice to be happy for him for a change, and we're not moaning at him. It'd be nice to see some success for him. And you got to think there was talk about IndyCar going to Mexico, and you think if Pato O'Ward can't help get it done, Sergio Perez bloody could, and maybe Jacob would finally get our wish for Mexico City to host IndyCar, and we can see if that track actually works for racing of any kind.
Yeah, Mexico City they can take IndyCar and they can forget about F1. They can have it. I've just got visions now. You've mentioned him in IndyCar. I've got visions of him going around that track. I can't remember what track it is actually. What's the one, Thiemo, with the lake and the pond and the fountain? The really one that's got no barriers around
Long Beach.
That's the one. He's going to end up in that fountain. I've got visions of him. What a track! What a track! Quick
reference, actually, it's a track where it's a street circuit. There's obviously various monuments around the place. There's a fountain roundabout at one point which they leave there because they kind of have to. And for years, no one ever thrashed into it at all. And the first year I started watching, and I think the same with Jacob, nearly everyone drove into it at some point. There's cars in the flower bed, there's cars in the fountain, there's cars getting blocked all over the place. You go, I like this IndyCar. I think it's a bit crazy, isn't it?
You little good luck charms. Look at you.
Thank you.
It was something to. Yes, sight for the whole, but it really was quite entertaining. But it doesn't happen every year. I don't think it happened last year. It was a one-off.
No. Do you have anything else you want to plug before I do one last prediction, which I think you'd be happy with, Jacob?
No, I think I'm all done on my end.
In which case, my last prediction will be that by the end of the year, Mohammed bin Sulayem will not be the president of the FIA.
Preach.
And
Let's go.
we will raise a glass.
You're getting the
to that.
t-shirts made. Okay, good.
Virtual glass raised to that. There you go.
I'm going to say on that bombshell, but I'm trying not to steal that show's thunder. So, with that in mind, that's all we've got time for this episode of On the Kerbs Pub Chat. As we mentioned at the top, we're going to try and do one of these every month, and we don't know what we're going to be talking about next time because that's the fun of it. We're just going to see what kind of tickles our fancy at the time, and hopefully we'll be somewhat relevant in doing so.
Friend. It's the thing of February.
We'll talk about it, definitely. I just don't know if it's going to be in the way you want us to talk about it.
Oh.
I think I'll definitely need to drink for that episode.
Yeah.
You get one of those hats that you see fans wear at baseball games with the two bottles on either side that just have a bottle of wine on each.
Yeah.
I think I'll have spirits either side.
Pure vodka. If you'd like us to answer any questions you've got, listeners, then do comment wherever you listen to this or reach out to us on social media. Jacob might not answer, but we probably will. And in the meantime, we'll be back for another episode. But in the meantime, if the ladies and gentlemen listening would like to find more of you both in other motorsport mediums, is there anywhere they can do it? And if so, where? Who wants to go first?
You can find me over on Twitter at JacobPhil18, where I do my best to remain level-headed about most things in motorsport. Sometimes I do delve into the more negative aspects, but that wasn't really my fault. It's what happens that leads me to write negative things. But sometimes it is positive, and we hope for a positive F1 season.
Okay.
And you can find me on TikTok at Formula Sue. It's Formula SU. And on Instagram by Formula Sue. Like by Formula Sue. You got it.
If any of that was confusing, it's all going to be in the notes below this episode,
Thank
so
you.
it's all good. Don't worry. If you'd like more from me, in the description as well. So I'm trying to think of a shorter name for any of my handles because it's getting a bit of a mouthful. But all of my motorsport stuff is there. And if you'd like more from this podcast, all the episodes can be found wherever you're listening to this. And if you want to make sure that you're not going to miss any future episodes, make sure you've subscribed. So that's all good. In the meantime, that's all we've got time for. Thank you very much for listening.